Hi, this is Bill Joyce, and I'm the broker at Charter Home in Sacramento and a blogger at survivingtheamericandream.org. While I'm an advocate for home ownership in general, I've seen the kind of pain and suffering a poor home choice can have on a family's finances, marriage, health, and overall happiness. I believe the oversold and underdefined image of dream home encourages people to spend far too much money for the wrong kinds of things. Buying a house doesn't get you the life you imagine, or the time to live it, any more than joining a gym will make you fit. It takes discipline and effort to create the things you dream of. You can't simply buy them. Join me while I interview experts in various fields like financial planning, marriage and family therapy, career counselors, life coaches, as well as happy and unhappy homeowners willing to share their hard-earned wisdom. Today I'm interviewing Elizabeth Farrell, a mother, co-active life coach, certified health coach, yoga teacher, licensed special education teacher, and homeowner living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. What is your experience personally? Do you own a home now, or have you in the past?
We do,
or?
yeah.
Okay.
Santa Fe is an interesting market. Santa Fe is not a renter's market. It's very difficult to find a place to rent here that's affordable and that has space. And so we started looking for a home. And for us, we had to both, I really feel like, look at what we wanted in a house and also look at the market, and also look at, what are we willing to commit to in terms of the investment. And for us, starting out, we wanted a house that that wasn't above our means. And that was a big part. I said that was a big part for me. That was a big part for Eric. I said, I don't want a home that breaks us financially.
And you were both
he didn't either.
Felt strongly about that. You were both on the same page with that.
We really were. And, I said, well, if if you lose your job, whatever happens, we should not have a house that we can't afford monthly.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like for both of us, especially him, it was, okay, well, we can always find a way to afford this month for a mortgage and the general expenses, taxes and utilities. And so we bought a house with, part of both of us were saying, oh, are we, pushing our limit by buying this house? And it came to no, because we are in a good school district, which mattered because we have a daughter. And if we were in another district, we would have to then pay for private school.
Mm-hmm.
And so for elementary school specifically, and I said, I don't really want to pay for elementary school. I would like to have our daughter be able to go to public school. So, let's buy a house in a good district, in a good school district. And the other part of it was we didn't want a house that really had too much upkeep in terms of buying it and then having to put a large amount of money in to fix it or redo things. So we bought a house that is from the 60s. However, the people who had lived here before really took great care of it. They maintained it, and we haven't had to do much.
How long have you been in that house?
We've been here now for 2.5 years.
Okay, so that's fairly recent still.
Yeah, still recent. We've had some minor, issues, and we want to do some updates. But I think for us, just to bottom line it's that we have come to a place where we would rather have good food and be able to travel a little bit, be able to experience life, and not have all of our money and everything go into the house.
Right.
We didn't buy a fancy house. It's a very nice house, but we didn't buy, a $700,000 house.
Right. Do you? How did you determine what would be a comfortable amount? Without getting into specifics, what was the process that you went through to figure out what can we afford and still have the money to travel and to do things that we want to do?
We looked at, what we had started doing. My husband's very particular about money, which I wasn't always. So
okay, so he's the money minder of the family.
He is. I mean, we both are, but he is definitely so, and you might actually want to talk to him because he's also very astute in finances. And one thing that we started doing as a couple before we even bought the house was he said, we need to know how much we spend, and we need to know what our daily life costs.
Mm-hmm.
And that began a process of literally, and we still do it to this day, of creating a shared spreadsheet where we each put down how much we're spending every single day.
Is that so?
Yeah. So, how much did we eat out? How much do we spend on groceries? How much do we spend on, taxes or bills or utilities, clothes, all of that? And from there, we looked at how much we spent over the year and said, okay, this is our budget. This is where we want to keep it. We don't want to go above this. And we set a budget, a monthly budget. And that helped us, I believe, look at how much, okay, so we can afford this much of a mortgage every month.
Most people go to a bank and find out how much they can afford on a house, as opposed to having the discipline that you and your husband had of putting all the expenses into a spreadsheet and tracking it for a while. A lot of people just go to the bank, and the bank will give you a certain percentage against income, and it's all based on ratios of income and existing debt. But those are maximums. Those are what you're qualified, what you'd be eligible to borrow, what they'd be willing to lend, not necessarily having anything to do with how you might want to live. And you approached it from, here's how we live, and here's how much we're willing to spend. Did you ask the bank how much they would lend you?
I believe Eric went to the bank, but I also think his father helped us.
Okay.
If I recall back, I'm not recalling, but he sat down with his father because his father is a real estate guy.
Right.
And just was able to kind of look at all of our expenses and really help guide Eric with that piece. And I know we went to the bank at one point for a mortgage, or to see where we'd land. And we came up with, we can't afford more than, say, $520 or whatever. We didn't want to go more than that.
You didn't want to. Well, you didn't. I think the distinction here is you not.
The keyword, we did not. The key word for us, and I would say, because I have a lot of friends in our age group, most of them are doctors.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny, Eric and I have some friends, and we have what it boils down to for us, and has boiled down for us, is a values, a relationship to your values. And I say that meaning he and I really value having a simple life, a simple house. We hope to one day live in a yurt or trailer or something. So for us, my values was I don't really feel like we need to go beyond our means with how we live, because that, to me, doesn't make me happy.
Right.
At the end, doesn't make us happier. And it's been a big stress for him in saying, I have to provide and have this nice and a certain lifestyle. And I said, but wait a minute, we actually are really good about how we actually value different. We value the good food more than a nice curtains or filling our house with really luxurious items.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a values issue of what do you value. And for us, I don't want to be stressed out because we have this big house and we have to decorate and we have to, try to afford it every month. We were very clear from the beginning, have been clear on that for each other. And we consistently talk about that because we see our friends, not all of them, you can afford the whatever, but it's going, well, what do they value more? What's valuable to them? And especially when buying a house, I think if it's with a partner, what are your values? What do you value?
We value lots of things. There's not a limit to the things that we think about and can care about. But trying to have all of it in mind and find that balance when you're concentrating on a purchase, when you're concentrating on buying a house, I think it can be really challenging.
It can be, yeah. I mean, and I think it also stresses the familial system. It can, depending on who the breadwinner is, which I'm sure you've seen in selling houses. It's a big thing for a lot of families. Whether you own a house. So, because I feel like buying a house it's like a milestone. It's like a marker, right? It's like, okay, especially if you're just starting out, it's okay, we're going to buy a house. That means you're settling in. That means you're settling, you're switching that switch over. And I think for men, it's very different than it is for women. I think for men,
how so? Describe that. Your thoughts there.
Yeah, I will. I think for men, it turns into a lot of pressure. I really do. I feel like it creates a sense of, it's
responsibility.
It can stress. Yeah, the responsibility piece.
Okay.
To some extent, of okay, now I have to provide. We have to make enough money to pay for this house. Where and there's certain things that come with owning a house. Fixing the house, general maintenance, general taking care of the house. If the roof breaks, something happens with the roof, it's a big expense. So we have to have money in the coffers to pay for the roof. It's,
right.
All those things that put stress on the system.
And how do you think women view that differently?
I think for women, I think they know that that's there. But I think for women, they're like, let me just nest in my house. Let me just make it where I am. And for women, they want to I know for myself, I'm speaking for myself, and for a lot of other women I know, I just want to nest. I want to create this space for my family. And sometimes that, looks like new furniture and creating that kind of,
home.
kind of experience as creating a home. And so that's where I think sometimes where, there can be that disconnect, and it can put pressure on the system.
Even in places where homes are less expensive, more affordable, incomes aren't as high generally. So it's the same problem exists, just on smaller or larger scales. But one of my beliefs is that the home choice affects everything in your life. It's not a purchase like you're buying a car or a TV. It's a thing that you're buying. It's really fundamental to your life, and that's your home base. That's where you start and end each day.
Yeah.
That's where you that's where you live. That's where you live your life. That's the place where it happens. And that's huge. That's huge in terms of money. It's huge in terms of time that it takes. And it affects your relationships. It affects your career. It affects pretty much everything, which is an almost overwhelming kind of decision. How do you now take something, it's at some point you have to do your best and make steps forward. But at this point, I think from my perspective, I see people just buying big, pretty houses, going to the bank, finding out what they can afford, which is the maximum, and doing their best and finding, as much as they can for that amount of money. And relationships, then they see what the impact is. They go discover whether that was a good idea or not.
Yeah, and I see that a lot, and I think that's something in our generation, to be honest. I think that I remember my grandparents, my mom's parents, even my dad's parents. My grandfather did really well. I mean, he was, an executive at a company kind of, but the one thing my grandfather never did is he never bought the big, huge house. He bought it was a very simple house in Corning, New York, and it was very simple. But he saved a lot of money, and that was his priority. And I think in our generation we have a disconnect from that. And I'm not saying that for everyone. I think that we have become a generation that doesn't know that we forget about the future. And Eric talks a lot about this. He's like, Beth, I want to retire at some point,
right.
sooner than later. And So we need a certain amount of money to retire. And I would say that a lot of us aren't thinking about that. A lot of people in my generation, not a lot, but a certain amount, are not thinking about, well, what does it look like when I'm 60, 65, 70, and what are we going to do?
Right.
Right? I mean, and so you go, right, so maybe the big, huge house that stretched you completely to the max is really not the wisest decision, because what are you going to do when you're 65, and are you still going to be paying that mortgage, or are you going to be have you paid it off?
Right.
What about savings? Chances are we won't all have Social Security in our generation. So where does that go? And I feel like a lot of us, I was one of those people. I was a teacher. I only had so much money, but I had a pension. So if you go, well, what would have been the likelihood of me saving enough money to actually retire?
And?
And, I said, exactly. And,
and,
yeah.
And Eric's been very helpful in that regard. So but I think you're right. And I'm not entirely sure why. I think people are aware, and they will contribute to their pension or their 401k, and there's that measure of responsibility. But I don't know if the detail is always there. That is, how much exactly will I need, and how much will my investments produce as income, and how much will I need to live on? There are so many unknowns, and so much present responsibility that, well, we got to get the kids through school, and we may have to put them in private school, and I got to fix the roof, and I'll get into the detail more later. I feel that way sometimes, that we're not treating money and that future in the same way. And my grandfather was the same way. He was a banker back when banking was different. I think they kept people's money in the bank and then they lent it. It was that. It's a very different business now, I think. And he was very frugal. His advice was never fall in love with a house. That was his house advice. Don't fall in love with a house. And actually, he had what I thought was the coolest house. It was sort of a cabiny thing out by a lake, but it was apparently, this is when they were retired, and I don't think it was terribly expensive. And then they ended up selling that and moving into a mobile home. Now, he had a lot of money, actually. He could have lived anywhere he wanted, and this goes back to, I think, a recurring theme in our conversation today is the values. He didn't want the responsibility. That cool house, I think, was a lot of work. There was a lot of money tied up in it, and he ended up getting into a mobile home park, which just seems so, I don't know, trailer. There's just something that I'm not sure where I got that perspective, that somehow was lesser. But it was this nice mobile home park. They had very little work to do. It was easy kind of retirement living and incredibly affordable. And he was a financially very well off person. Could have done all kinds of things. And I think it was simply his values that, it's like the millionaire next door kind of thing. The people who have money are the people who don't look like necessarily they have money, because they don't put their money into the showy things. They save it. They stick it away. So this values idea, I think, is a big theme here. And that's something that is going to be worth exploring, putting more detail on. What are the values? How would you help people, a couple, a family, get to that? How do you discuss that?
I think, you first have to start with, what's your perspective around money? What's your perspective around saving? And then also, what are your values? What do you value? And, Eric and I have been we've communicated on that in so many different ways. And we even made a list where it's like, well, I value, where we're going to spend money on, for example, is, well, I value having really good organic food because to me, that is a longevity issue and a health issue, and I want my health, and I want our daughter to have good health, and I don't want chemicals on my food.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I also value, you know, to me that's a big, big issue. So for me, I'll cut somewhere else out of the budget
to have
before
that.
To have that.
Right. And your
so
daughter being in a good school.
Yeah.
That's a value.
I mean, that's a value.
Right.
And so, yeah, so that means, okay, so we don't need to go buy a, $3,000 sofa because, quite frankly, it's not in the budget. And for me, I say, okay, what do I really, for me, it's always like, okay, so, it's okay that I can't have a $3,000 sofa because, quite frankly, I don't really need it. And so it's always, I think this is where couples can get tricky is what do you value and what do I value? And how can we compromise if there needs to be compromise?
Mm-hmm.
And what's important? And for us, having this spreadsheet at first, I'll be honest, I fought it. I was like, Eric, I really don't want to count every penny.
I was wondering about that because that sounds like that was probably his idea.
I used to do it myself, but it looks different. It's different when you just do it for yourself. It's your own thing. But, back to the coaching piece, it comes to I have to be really honest.
Right.
I can't hide that I went and spent $30 on shoes. Do you know what I mean? Or I can't hide that I spent, I spent that much, It's like, so for me, it's constantly being honest. It's constantly admitting and saying, yeah, I spent $3.98 on that latte. That's true. And, that's what's happening.
Does that cause friction? Because I could see that being, thinking back to my marriage, I could see that being, having, being difficult.
It was at first, okay, because I was saying I was used to being independent and he was used to being independent.
Right.
And for me, it was, I don't want to, why can't I have some freedom in here? But now I've looked at it as I've learned a lot. And I've also thought, okay, yeah, I also realized the value in it and the importance of it because it keeps me honest. It keeps me saying, okay, maybe I didn't need to really spend $3.98, which is the running rate for a latte. And maybe I shouldn't have, maybe it's not necessary, but for me, it's like actually having a budget every month really keeps your money in check. It says, okay, our budget for that is this amount. And I start to even get anxious or kind of start to feel like, we're kind of hitting our limit there. And what can I do to dial it in and rein it in instead of being, because I'm more of the spender in our relationship in terms of I'm buying the groceries and buying the clothes for our daughter and, buying some things for the house, or whatever we need for the house. So I'm more of the spender. So for me, it keeps me more in check. And also the other thing is, I saw my mom, and this is maybe too much information, but I saw my mom hide things from my dad. It was, let's not tell Dad we bought this. Let's not tell Dad we went shopping. And when you have a budget and a spreadsheet that you're sharing with your partner, you really can't do that. And if you do it, that impacts the relationship. That creates tension and that creates fights and arguments and, that's not good.
Right.
And so I wanted to be really honest. I wanted to say, yeah, I did go out and spend that, but I have a limit. My clothing budget is this. I stick to it because to me that's important. And quite frankly, I don't want to stress my husband out any more than he already is stressed out. That's important to me. So
this is a big topic, though. This idea of really communicating about money, and feeling accountable to someone. That was always a delicate topic in my marriage. And you having done both in essence, would you recommend that accountability, the spreadsheet, or the well-documented budget to others?
I would. I think that for me, I mean, money's been a big issue for me in terms of previous relationships and seeing how it impacted my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I came with a lot of trepidation around discussing money because of the pain it caused. And so I had this trepidation about speaking about it. And Eric's like, no, we actually have to talk about this. You know, you can't shy away from talking about it. And I think also I wasn't given the tools to know how to talk about it or know about it or have knowledge around it. And so part of my coaching work for myself with my personal coach has been, Beth, you need to learn about this. You know, you need to start reading money blogs, and you need to start educating yourself so you can be informed. And that's been important for me, is actually to learn about it and learn, how do you manage your money? How do you, set up if you have money in savings and it's not earning any interest, why that's a bad idea, and why you need a mutual fund and all these things that I'm learning about because it's important.
Right.
Where I might not have before. So to me, I feel like the spreadsheet, and have recommended it to some of my friends, and I've said, this is what Eric and I do. I mean, maybe that kind of thing doesn't work for you as so nitty-gritty, but quite frankly, it's worked for me because I wasn't always so good about tracking my money or knowing where my money was going, and that was not working. That wasn't serving me. And so knowing that and saying, okay, and being the one, like every week we check, we really go through and say, okay, I'm at this much with my eating out. Where are you at? And do we have room there? Or are we going to go over? And if we're going to go over, what do we do? For me, I think in general, this is a general thing. It's like, it's really the question to ask people is what before they even buy the house, what's your budget? What does it look like? How much do you plan on spending? And so meeting with a financial advisor before you even meet with the mortgage person.
I think that's a great idea. Nobody does that. I'm sure I've had clients that have talked to financial advisors about a home, but I couldn't name one. And I know that most of them do not. Well, Elizabeth, this has been great. I've taken more of your time than I was intending, but
it's okay.
Thank you. I'm going to stay in touch with you, and good luck with your coaching.
Thanks for joining us on the Surviving the American Dream podcast. If you found this helpful, please leave a comment and share with your friends or family, and especially anyone looking to make their home happier.